Thank you, Dr. Ozge. I'm glad to see all of you here today in Masaka. The past two conferences have been held in Kampala, but we're happy to host you in Masaka, me and the entire iChad and SMART team. Mr. Sentum, I've been dancing and jumping, and I'm coming for my soda right after. So Smart Africa is a study that it's like an importation from the US coupled with components from the other countries like South Africa. So when we got approval to carry out the study, that was in May 2016, our first task, or my first task and the team, was to adapt the intervention by using different components, and we used different components, and these were mainly three. We got the 4S and 2S curriculum from the US. We used part of the South African VUCA, and we used a lot from our studies here, Professor Fred's studies, the Subi Bridges curriculum. So this adaptation started way back in February 2017. And what happened is we met with a few of you, a few teachers and peer parents, and we introduced the concept to you and the topics we were thinking of, and you gave us your feedback, and we went and incorporated all your feedback into what we were designing, into what now we call Amakama Sanyuf, which translates for happy families. So the adaptation took months, and I think even when we received our first visit from the monitors, who were not done with the adaptation, but the teachers and the parents were really fundamental in adapting the curriculum. And yeah, that's a little bit tiny, but yeah, it's a 16-session curriculum we call Amakama Sanyuf. So we picked a few topics from the 4S and from the 4Rs and the 2S curriculum in the US, and added a few from Bridges and VUCA, and we came up with Amakama Sanyuf, but we maintained the structure of how it's supposed to be and how it's supposed to be delivered. So what we basically did, we tailored it to Uganda. So this is so there are two. So this is the facilitator one. There are a few facilitators. There are community healthcare workers and peer parents. The community healthcare workers and peer parents, if you're around, you can stand up. So these are the part of the facilitators that are going to help us deliver the curriculum, and we've started training them. We've started getting them ready to deliver the curriculum, and what you've been using is what I'm holding up in my right hand. And in my, it's very small, you won't be able to see unless you're seated like here, which no one is. But there's also a participant workbook. Now, the participant workbook is supposed to help the families. It's different. They are basically the same, but a little bit different, in that this one is more child-friendly. It has more pictures. It gives them an opportunity to write whatever they want to write down. So this will be given to the families, while this one will be given to the facilitators. And why we're excited about this manual, of course, apart from what we expect it to do, we expect it to change behavior of families that have children with behavioral difficulties or emerging behavioral problems. But what we're also excited is that the participants, all the children, did participate in that development. And they did so by giving us very nice pictures. So, for example, this picture, we asked a child to draw what they think a happy family is. And that was their drawing. There's a bicycle somewhere. The child is playing with the mom. and the dad is there with them seated up on the stool, and there are a few birds in the neighborhood. Now, for that child who drew this picture, that is a happy family. So we're pretty excited to deliver and to have the children participate in. The children, the parents, the teachers were excited that they participated in coming up with this manual, because now it's theirs and we actually want them to own it. So what we're currently doing, we're going to these, we visited very many schools, and so far we've started training facilitators in 4 schools. I was part of the team that started the training of the facilitators, but I'll let my colleague Fiona, who has been there throughout, to take you through what it's been like training the facilitators.
Sit there for later when they have questions. So maybe doing that both do the trainings and then we'll do the.
Thank you, Dr. Apollo. You're welcome. All protocol observed. So I'll talk about how the training has gone so far. We've been able to start training for facilitators in 4 schools out of the 20 schools from which the MFG component will be delivered. So we have 2 schools in the parent-peer arm that are being trained, while we have 2 schools that fall in the community health worker arm that are also being trained. We started the training for community health workers on 30th May 2018, and I can say that we've completed training for all the 16 sessions for all the 4 groups of parent peers and community health workers. So the training was very engaging, and we involved the facilitators and the iChat team, which was previously trained by Dean Mary McKay, to train other facilitators or trainers of the facilitators. So a team of Dr. Apollo, Flavia, Jennifer, Dr. Ebo, and William and Wilberforce were trained by Dean Mary to deliver the training to the facilitators. So we trained fellow trainers, part of the iChat team, that went with us to the field, that is Bettina and Sebula Francis, to do this training. So this is how we would do the training. We'd start with a discussion with the parent peers from our last training and try to follow up from what we did and what we discussed. Most of the questions were around the 4 R's and 2 S's, which are responsibility, rules, respectful communication, stressors in the family, and social support. And we discussed how these factors or components help us build good families in our communities. We went ahead to try to do mock sessions. So we'd allocate the facilitators to read ahead of the training and have them practice how they would deliver these sessions if we sat in a group of parents. And when these 2 facilitators delivered the mock sessions, we'd, as a team, would give comments and tell them where they did well and where they needed an improvement, so that we help them build skills and help them build their confidence in how to facilitate these groups. I can say that the training generally went well. We learned from each other, from the field, given that the people we are dealing with are already managing their families and from different backgrounds. So it also gave us a bit to learn from. And the facilitators initially were not as vibrant as they were by the time the training was complete. And given the improvements over the training, I can say that the facilitators are more than ready to go to the field and start the facilitation for our recruited participants. Additionally, the only thing that's left to qualify the facilitators is the test that they are supposed to do to assess their performance and their knowledge and how they've mastered the MFG to deliver it to our participants. So that will be at a pass mark of 85%, and those who do not get to the 85%, we will retrain so that they get into in the range of 85%, just to make sure they are ready and have mastered the manual well enough to give our participants a good feel of this intervention so that we can have good results in the end. Thank you very much, and I'm grateful to the trainees of the MFG manual so far in the 4 schools, and thank you for the cooperation and for learning and for allowing to be trained, and for the facilitators in the other 16 schools, don't be worried. We are getting there because we need to prepare and we don't need to rush this. We will call you in due time, train you, so that you deliver the manual to our participants. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Fiona. I will call you back here very soon so that you can tell us about all the children and caregivers that are participating in our study. But as you mentioned, we have more community health workers and parent peers we will be training very soon. So we will be working with 60 community health workers and 60 parent peers. So I would like to invite Dr. Abel so that he can walk us through the process of how we selected our parent peers and community health workers and how we reached out to them and recruited them for the study. Dr. Abel?
Thank you very much, Dr. Osge. Dr. Apple and Fiona has walked you through the other pieces. I'm going to just talk about how these were selected. I want to mention that selection of the community health workers and peer educators was not easy. We had to talk about and think through it several times. We looked through all the ways of how best they can be selected. We didn't know until we were advised that these community health workers, we have to get them through the office of the DHO. Then some of us argued that community health workers are not government employees. They are not, so we don't need to seek permission from the DHO. Others felt we should. Then finally we agreed that we select them through other existing community health workers. So we contacted the few we knew through one of our friends, and then they led us into others. So would say, if James, are you a community health worker, do you know others? Then they would say, oh yes, I know so and so, I know so and so, I know so and so. Then from there, we also developed the criteria. What type of community health worker do we want? Because you see, as Fiona has been saying, you need to know how to train. You know, training a person is not easy. Standing in front of people and facilitate is not easy. And also mastering a manual and deliver it in the same way you are expected is also not easy. So we set a criteria, which we said somebody should be able to talk audibly, and somebody should be able to read and write, of course, because you can't deliver manual when you can't read and write. And also somebody should be confident enough to talk and loud enough as well. If you are not loud enough, if you are not confident to stand in front of people and talk, if you cannot read and write, there is no way you can deliver manual. So when it came to peer parents, we said, okay, how do we get them? These are easy, they don't follow under structure, they're just community people, members. So we rotated around schools, said, okay, any parent who has a child in that school, or who is in the neighbor in the school who can read and write, and can talk, you can be a good parent, okay, peer parent. So again, through the school structure, we're able to identify the peer parents. After, of course, the same criteria was also considered: able to talk, able to communicate, read and write. And that's how we got them on board. So we have 60 community health workers, and 60 peer parents. I managed to attend one of the sessions where the community health workers were being trained to deliver this MFG manual. I think it was at the Chitende, the primary school, and I found it very interesting. The community health workers were very excited, they were very engaging, they were very participatory, they were asking questions, they were playing role models, they were asking each other questions, and they were enjoying the session. I felt that was very, very, very good. So if the team from Chitende is here, I was impressed. Yes, Butende, not Chitende. Oh, because I live near Chitende in Kampala. Yes, Butende, yes, I was impressed. And I remember when I was talking to Dr. Aporo, I said, but can somebody who is in the advanced age train? And when I was asking Bettina and Francis who were training them, they said, by the way, the old people are even doing it better than the young ones. So age, age is just the number. Yeah, age is just the number. The capacity has nothing to do with the age. Even there are young people who don't do very well and old ones do well. So I was really happy with the way the team was doing it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Abel. Can I actually have you sit over here so that if we have any questions from the audience that we will be able to answer them? So I will invite Fiona back on stage so that she can walk us through how we reached out to the children and their caregivers, how we recruited them, how many we recruited them, where we are in the study. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's for sure. Thank you, Dr. Ozgi. So, we reached out to schools in the Masaka diocese in which we work. We reached out to the districts in the Greater Masaka region where we've worked previously and selected over 40 schools. We considered distance, we considered their location so that we can have a variety of schools and a variety of locations so as to diversify our results. In the end, we chose 30 schools and these were randomized into 3 study arms. So we started recruitment for participants and their caregivers in October 2017, and this ran across to November 2017. We resumed our recruitment in March this year until April 2018, and so far we've recruited 2,759 participants and their caregivers. So we have 2,759 children plus their caregivers. At recruitment, we consent and assent the children, and these are children aged 8 to 13. So according to research law, they are liable to assent so as to take part in a research study. So in consenting, we sit their parents together and read the consent form to them. They are given a chance to ask questions, if any, and any details of the study as they might prefer. We also sit the children in a different room, read them the assent form, and this is in a language that they understand better. English is a formal language here, but for many of the schools we work with, it's always better to read out the consent and assent forms in the local language which the children understand, since they are little and they haven't really grown to know many of the English terms which we use. So we run our consent forms and every other document we use in the field through the languages department at Makerere University, and these certify that whatever we have in the local language is what is written in the English version, to make sure we are not presenting a document to participants in the local language different from what was approved by our RRBs and UNSCST. So those are the governing bodies that rule the research here, and they need to confirm that the documents we give are really a true reflection of the English versions of the documents. And after screening, after consenting and assenting, we screened participants for behavioral disorders, and we used a screening tool that had 3 scales: the disruptive behavior disorder scale, where if a participant scored 3 or higher for any of the questions, for about 10 of the questions in the scale, they were screened positive. We used the Iowa Corner scale, whose rating we modified to fit our setting, and every child who scored 6 or higher for questions 6 to 10 on the Iowa Corner scale, we considered positive for behavior disorders. And for the impairment scale, we also modified the rating to fit our setting, since this is how we could adapt it to our setting. And for every participant who scored 3 or higher for at least 4 items of the impairment scale, these were screened positive for behavior disorders. So the participants who screened positive for behavior disorders, at baseline, they complete a longer version of the assessment battery, while those who screen negative for behavior disorders complete a shorter version of the assessment battery. So we did our baseline in March and April this year, and we did our 8 weeks. We were supposed to give out literature to the schools in which we work. So we started with 10 schools in the control arm, and of the 10 schools, we had to give out mental health literature. So we met the parents and their children, and we distributed this literature to them. It was from the Ministry of Health about different mental health issues and how to cope with them and where to get help. After giving out the literature, we counted 8 weeks so that we can follow up to see if there is any impact of the literature we gave out to the parents and the children. So we did our 8 weeks follow-up in June, around the 2nd week of June, and we completed in the 1st week of July. So we are preparing to do 16 weeks follow-up for still the 10 control arm schools, and we shall be doing the 16 weeks follow-up beginning in the 2nd week of August. Of course, we begin with those that did the 8 weeks assessment before the rest. So we do it in that order to make sure the timelines are in place. And yeah, I can say that's where we are currently. We are preparing to do 16 weeks follow-up, but we've completed baseline 8 weeks follow-up for the 10 control arm schools, and I can say our attrition is quite good. From the number we managed to reach out to at baseline, I think our attrition is about 1.57%, which is good because then we get to track and follow up many of our participants. Thank you. I think besides that, we're just preparing to start baseline when our facilitators are ready to deliver our MFG. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Fiona. So I jotted down a couple of words that we used that that our audience, not everyone in the room may know. So if I could get Dr. Apollo to explain what we mean by consenting and assenting, and what exactly is in that document and why we need to do that.
Consenting and assenting in the easiest term possible, it's getting permission. So you get permission from the child to participate in the study, but because that participant is a child, still under someone's roof, you also ask for the head of the roof to give you permission. So the child giving you permission is what we call an assent, and the guardian or the parent giving you permission for that child to participate is what we call the consent. And what basically those documents contain is information about the study, the dangers they may face, what they stand to benefit, where they can go to if they have questions that they don't ask you since you're the one doing the study, but they can get to ask someone else who gives you permission. So there's information about the people who give us permission to do the study, their rewards, what the study is about. So it's a document that contains a lot of information in the simplest terms possible. So you break it down for the child to be able to understand, and you also break it down for the guardian to be able to understand. So basically that's what we do before you do anything with that child. They first have to give you permission.
Thank you. And then the other quick clarification that might be helpful is what we mean by screening. Ms. Fiona told us all the different measures that we are using. So basically what that means is that we are trying to figure out which of the children we are interviewing are struggling behaviorally. So we are trying to understand that so that we can monitor them closely to help them as much as we can. So Ms. Fiona pointed out to the fact that some of the children were positive, some of the children were negative. So that what that really means is that the children that we find are struggling more with behaviors is we are monitoring them more closely than the children who are doing just fine behaviorally, right? But they're all participating in the same MFG Amaka Masanyufu intervention. The only difference, did I say that right? Almost. I'm working on my Luganda. So the only difference is that the children who are behaviorally struggling, we are just keeping a closer eye on them than the ones who are doing just fine. Okay. So Ms. Fiona, you mentioned something called baseline. Can we explain what we mean by baseline?
When we are doing research, we always have assessment points. And for the Smart Africa study, which we are currently doing, and whatever we are explaining is about the Smart Africa study, we have 4 assessment points. So when we go into consent and assent the parents and they give us permission to take part in our study, we screen, like I explained, and since we have those who are struggling behaviorally and those who are not struggling, the aim of our research is to find out how these children are performing at different points. That's why we have assessment points. So for the Smart Africa study, we have 4 assessment points. So baseline is like the first assessment point, which I can say is 0 days. When you meet this participant in the field and you haven't talked to them about anything other than ask them permission to take part in your study, that's at 0 days. So baseline is at 0 days after contact with the participant to consent and assent. Then we have 8 weeks follow-up. So between baseline and 8 weeks follow-up, we gave out literature to these participants. And at 8 weeks follow-up, we monitor if the literature we have distributed to the families has an impact or not. And if the impact is there, what does this mean for our participants? And how can we maybe refer what we have to the rest of the population that is in the area that we work with? So that's the 8 weeks follow-up. At 16 weeks follow-up, we're still going to check, is there a difference from what they were at 8 weeks? And then after 16 weeks follow-up, our last assessment point will be after 6 months from the 16 weeks, which is 10 months from the start of interacting with with the participants. So then we want to know, has our intervention worked? If they are receiving the intervention like it is for the treatment arm schools, is the intervention helpful or it's not? And if it's helpful, how can the schools incorporate it into their cycle to help more children than those taking part in our study? Because with research, you can only work with so many participants and not the entire school or the entire district. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So if I may add one thing, the reason why we are doing what we call a baseline is to understand where our participants are before they participate into our program. And then we look at, because remember, as Dr. Apollo said, our program is a 16-week-long program, right? So we want to see how they're doing before we start the program so that we can understand if we see any differences at the end of our program when we ask them the same questions. If there is a difference, is that really because of our program? Right? So that is why we have different time points, as Ms. Fiona was explaining. And we are doing a 6-month follow-up to see if our program benefited our participants at all. Are they actually retaining those benefits 6 months after our program ended? Okay? I hope this makes a little bit sense. Okay, so then the last word that I would like to our team to explain is what we mean by attrition. Ms. Fiona mentioned something about attrition and attrition rate. So if any one of you can explain what we mean by that.
Attrition means falling out. For example, if you have 10 people you are working with, at the end of the day, 4 can no longer trace them. It means they have fallen out. That's what it means, turnover. In percentage, it's called turnover. But in this, you are calling it attrition because if you had 3,000 children, at the end of the day, how many are you remaining with? You can trace and see. If 100 can no longer see them, you don't know where they are, then that's what we call attrition.
Mm-hmm. And the smaller the number
Yes.
is, the better that means you're doing
Exactly.
with retaining your participants in your program. So when Ms. Fiona says we only had 1.55%, you said, so that's actually a pretty good number. So that means that we are doing good.
Good.
Yeah.
It means out of 100, we can still trace 98.5. On 1.5, we can't trace them.
Okay.
So we are doing very well.
Great. So what I would like to do now, if it's okay with our team, is to first thank the rest of the team that is standing outside by the door, who are our interviewers, data collectors, data managers, data entry people, who are really working hard to get everything we need for this program to be successful. So if we can all join me in thanking them all. And then, before we talk about some of the findings, preliminary findings from what we've done so far, I would like to open it to questions from our stakeholders, if they have any.
Well, thank you. See, Yusuf Soed Mayanja, Vice Chairman, Kalungu District. Mine is to Madam Fiona. Maybe I came late. I wanted her to explain more about the literature. We give them literature. What is the content of the literature and the impact? Thank you.
Thank you. That's an excellent question. Ms. Fiona?
So the literature we distributed to the families is literature from the Ministry of Health. So Ministry of Health has put together different notebooks or booklets on different behavioral disorder issues. So part of the literature we gave out, some was about schizophrenia, which I don't know how that translates in Uganda, because we have so many, but one of the leaflets was about schizophrenia, another was about epilepsy, another one was about alcoholism and drug abuse, We had one about, I think, mental health issues or something. Yeah, so there are a bit of a variety of literature for what we may term as disorders, mental disorders. So the literature contained explanation for the disorder, how it occurs, how it can be treated, and who you can reach out to in case you have a case in your home so that you can get help. So basically, if it's schizophrenia, what are the symptoms of schizophrenia? What are the signs? How can you know that your child is suffering from this disease? If it's epilepsy, chebaite ensimbu, it's a disorder. Omwana omanya otya nti alina ensimbu. Bwe liba ddalu. Actually, schizophrenia kitegeeza ddalu. Schizophrenia in the local language is eddalu. So it's a disorder according to Ministry of Health. So that is part of the literature we are giving our families to help them know and identify symptoms and signs of mental health issues amongst the children in their homes, where they can reach out to for medication or health interventions, and how they can be helped. So after giving out the literature, we want to assess, has the knowledge from this literature helped them identify any cases in their homes before they get to a stage where they are unmanageable? So it was to help them understand these issues at a manageable state so that they can get help. Thank you.
When we are getting this literature, I and Dr. Pro, when the minister and got literature, we wanted to put on our logo eye chart. But the minister said no. So when you don't see our logo there, don't worry. It is from the health professionals, from the Ministry of Health. If they had allowed us, we would have put our stamp so that we also, we are part of it, or we own it. But that didn't matter. What matters, the information which is there. It was designed by the professionals, tested, approved, and said now you can saturate. And the Ministry of Health was also very happy that we are going to do it for them. Because for them, they say they don't have that capacity of reaching deep down in the village and schools. So they said, oh, if you can do it for us, that's very good. Take as many as you want. So we shall even go back and look for more. Thank you.
I've been delegated to take over. Who has other questions? That's what I was told to ask. Yes.
Thank you, Professor. Special thanks go to you, as well as the government of USA. Mine is a worry. Now, after the findings of the research you are carrying out, do you have an assurance that the program will be adopted by the government such that it is implemented all over the country, Uganda, or it will just end here?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Let me take take chance to address that. Oh, behind this. Okay. This is what I believe in life. That no one should ever give you assurance. I'm in a country where when the president came in, he said he would rule for 5 years. Then after that, it was another 5 years. Then after that, it was another 5 years, and so on. Then, how many of you have dated? You have fallen in love. You guys, so I'm assuming you have all fallen in love. Yes. So, when you're in love, in most cases you are promising someone, I will marry you. You are the best. A few months, a few weeks, or sometimes a few years, everyone goes their way. So all I can say, I can't promise that the government will adopt them. All I can do is to do good science, good research, take it to the government, and tell them this is what you get if you do this, this is what you'll miss out if you don't. If they take it on, great. If they don't, I can't push. So it's just like that. I mean, all you can do is do your part. When you are in a relationship, what you do your part to please your partner. But they may decide to go away, and what do? You understand? So that's it. So that's how I'll answer that. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Dr. Shibajita from the Africa-Uganda Center. Thank you for the excellent presentations. My question is about how you're controlling for contamination, since you are giving out the literature. How are you ensuring that families are not sharing this information to ensure that you're able to pick up change? Because your controls may not be true controls if they come across this information.
Okay, so since I read the research, I'll also take that on. So what we do, we've been doing, there's what they call individual randomization, where you individualize, an individual, you give this one an intervention, you skip this one, you give the other one, they live in the same community and that kind of stuff. So that's a good gold standard, assuming people don't get to talk to each other, or assuming you're giving a placebo and the other one is giving aspirin and you can't really distinguish whether the aspirin ingredients are within the placebo or they are lacking. So what we've done to address the issue of contamination in this particular case is that we randomize by what they call schools. It's clusters. So what we have here, we have 20 schools, am I right? We don't have 30 schools here. We don't have 30 schools here. We have, how many schools do we have here? We have 20 schools here. 20. Yes, okay. We have 20 schools. Each of these schools, first of all, the literature we give out from the ministry is universal. It goes to everyone. All the 30 schools receive the literature, all of them. Then, 10 schools out of 30, you guys are getting VHTs with MFG being delivered by VHTs. And then the other 10 schools are getting peer parents, so that you know. So everyone in that particular school is being mentored or facilitated by a VHT in that particular school, provided they are within that school. So the reason you have only 20, we would have had 30, then you would be worried about contamination because the other 10, but we brought 20 because the 10 which are in control are not here. So even when we invite, we tend to invite the control by themselves so that, we can discuss the literature and all that. And then when we invite you, we discuss the literature plus the MFG. Does it make sense? So there's what they call cluster randomization, where you randomize by cluster. And in this case, it's the school that we have randomized by. So every child in that school, provided they are between ages 8 and 13, they get our intervention. That's how we work, and that's how you address randomization. I mean, that's how you randomize. That's how you address contamination. Now, can there be seepage of some kind? Probably there could, but for as long as at least we are confident at 95% level that we are doing the best we can, then that's what we are doing. Okay? Doctor, did I answer your question? Yes, sir. Okay. Anyone else? Mr. Simba had a question, I understand.
No, I didn't have a question. I just wanted to comment on the previous question. The fact that we had government ministers at this conference is a sign that we are engaging the government officials. We are engaging the policymakers. So when we share the results, as we left, we talked to both ministers, and they were saying, this is very interesting work. And so that's how we get them on board, and that's how we get them to get interest in the results. And hopefully, they will adopt the results and implement it as part of policy.
Thank you for adding, Mr. Simba. Anyone else with a question in regards to implementation? Any other question? Yes, ma'am.
Like, I just want you to comment on how comes you have such a... Oh.
People get to know who you are on record.
Okay, I'm Rachel Maina from Kenya. I just want to ask, how comes you had a very successful attrition rate, 1.5%? What made that retention to be really good?
Excellent. What made us have a great attrition rate? So that's, I mean, I'll give a joking answer so I can wake everyone up, and then I may give a serious answer, hopefully. So I think the first one is because you have the best staff that you can ever have in the world. Big staff, so they are the best. And that's true, so they work hard, so that's it. But two, because, first of all, I think the moves within the areas, when kids are still young in primary, the moves are kind of fewer. So we are capturing kids before they are transitioning. So they are in primary 4, primary 5, so that tends to be a bit stable, okay? But the other reason is we have put in place what we call a tracking mechanism, where we get to know, even if you left that school, where can you be? Who else would know where you are? So we try to track these kids as much as we can, and in essence, I mean, at the end of the day, we end up getting them. So, and we have been doing longitudinal studies in this area for the last 15 years. So also the skills, the knowledge, the experience helps, I think. That's what I think. But I think above all, it's a well-designed study, and we have a very, very good team, and I mean that. So that's what I think. So, yes.
Thank you. My name is Derek Sewanyana, and I'm really impressed by the project that you're doing. My question is about during consenting, are there some participants who opted out, who did not consent? And it will be interesting to know the unique reasons as to why they did not consent to take part in a very impressive project.
So I'll give a chance to Dr. Apple to answer that, because they did the consenting. But I'm sure if there could be a few. I mean, people always have reasons. I'll give you in the past for my studies. In the past for my studies, 2 families. I think there was a family and another one. They just thought that it was too good to be true. So that's it. They just said, we don't trust you. There is no way you can match. So that's it. They just said, no. In Uganda, they say mukwasi wa mateeka. So they just said no. Then in another instance, it was because we were associated with a Catholic church. We were working with a Catholic church, and this was a Seventh-day Adventist family, and they said we wanted to change their kids from being Seventh-day Adventist to being Catholic, and they just said, no, actually, I'm just a caretaker. Their parents weren't allowed to work with Catholics. I said, I'm not a Catholic. He said, no, but you talked about Bishop Kagwa. And no. So that's it. Then in one of the studies we are doing now, and I'm going to give Dr. Apollo to tell you about SMART. In one of the studies we are doing now, which is Subi for Her, which tests young girls for HIV, for STIs, and pregnancy, I think we have about 4 or 5 parents, which is the highest number, who have said no. And purely, some of them have refused because they don't want to know why these kids are on medication. They have told these kids all along that you're on medication because of constant headache. So now you are going to test their blood and reveal it to the kid, you have HIV, then that's a problem. Does that make sense? So they have just, they are in denial. They're like, I know what is going on, I won't enter your study. So there are several reasons, but I'll give Dr. Apollo for SMART.
So for SMART, we had only one child who refused to participate, and it was because the child actually wanted, but the guardian didn't want, and that's because the guardian is always on the move. So when we told the guardian, well, we would want you to be around, there are 16 sessions, and would want you to participate, we want you to be around for this assessment point, and I was like, no, that's too much. And the guardian refused. So, but the child wanted. Yeah.
Actually, in most cases, the kids want. We just finished interviews where a kid came crying, saying, I thought mom signed. He said, no, call mom. She's coming. We spent an entire day waiting for mom to come. She never came. So they really want. The kids want. But sometimes the parent says no. Okay, one more question and then we'll move on to the research piece.
Protocol observed. Thank you so much, the organizers. My name is Tusime Patrick. My question is just to maybe an inquiry to find out if there are any, if you're trying also to find out any causes of these mental diseases or mental illnesses or disorders, because I'm personally kind of doing the similar research and I'm impressed because I was there thinking I'm the only person doing this, you know. But anyway, it is different in a way that mine is about sexual reproductive health. But we are finding out some issues of why parents or kids do certain things or bad things. There are always reasons behind that. So maybe that can be something that another person can take over if there are common causes of these illnesses, disorders, so that other people can take over from there. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. So our studies, Dr. Ozgi didn't tell you, maybe she did when I was out, but she's a very strong qualitative researcher. A qualitative researcher is one whom you tell the stories and then they're able to sink that story into, you know, into what, I was speaking in English or Uganda? Oh, they put, you know, I switch back and forth. That's a beauty or sometimes a disadvantage when I'm in the US because then my wife doesn't get to know what I'm talking about. But anyway, so someone who is able, you tell them stories and then they put it in a storyline that is understandable. Our studies have tended to be very quantitative. So sometimes to get to the root causes, you need to get the stories which are qualitative. That's why it's extremely important that we have a person like Dr. Ozik leading that part. And definitely, I'm glad that you found that we are also brothers with you, that you are not the only one doing this. So in regards to finding out causes, we are going to talk about the prevalence. We don't have those kinds of questions per se. We can make inferences, but we don't have, we cannot say for sure that this is what is causing that, okay? But now we are going to switch and move from the implementation to what we are finding, okay? Because we say this is an accountability. So we are giving an accountability. This is what we promised to do. This is what we are finding so far. And the findings are from purely the baseline screening what we are finding in regards to prevalence. But before